TPR.
Typical of what people think Karachi is and should be. Like if coincidentally, we've started. Roundup number 10, the February playlist, Hamnawa, Zeerak, whatever. Um, all the people I know here, coincidentally, the group that we have of Pakistani people, none of them are from Karachi. There was one guy, he left. So, and this is a very weird situation for me because Karachi is the biggest city, and statistically likely if you have Pakistani people, they'll be from Karachi.
Surprisingly, that is also my scene here. I don't know many people from Karachi.
It is a tech industry problem, but because they're not even from Lahore, they're all Islamabadis. And this is the first exposure I've had to Islamabadis at such scale. Because in Dublin, all these are tech companies, and people come for Facebook, they come for Google, etc., etc. So they have no idea. I think one of them has been to Karachi. My wife Basma went to Karachi because of me, because she was forcibly integrated into Karachi. Otherwise, there'd never been no exposure, no plans, no interest in going to Karachi. The only thing they know is obviously MQM and the accent is now. So when I heard the song Vibe Karachi, that is what this can never reach their ears, because they'd be like, we knew it.
Confirmation bias की घंटियां बजनी शुरू हो जाएंगी.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, I just put it in primarily because it's so ridiculous, but in like a endearing way.
Yes.
If you don't look at it from those angles.
Yes.
कितना silly है, कितना stereotypical है, मतलब कितना वो कराची में phone छिन जाएगा, ये वाले सारे problems.
Yeah, but there was one guy who comes in the song, he's like, I'm from Punjab. So he starts off by saying, I'm not from here, but I'm now here.
Immigration into Karachi also constant theme.
It's Pakistani rap is a true representation of all dynamics, socio-political, regional, racial, religious, I don't know. But khair. So this playlist is, once again, very long. There was a point where I was like, maybe I should tell Zeerak, let's try and hit for 10-15 songs. But like, I don't want to intrude into your creative process. But very long, 80% hip-hop. Again. So is this because before, once upon a time, you said that these playlists are what you are currently listening to, right? Is there a sort of feedback loop now where you are thinking that this is what should be in the playlist, even if you're not listening to it as much?
There is. I get the feeling like मैं निकालता हूँ तो थोड़ा बहुत, like, sometimes people will expect some stuff to be in there that's not. So like, even though I try to portray it as very personal in terms of what I'm listening to, I think there is a sense that it should be we sound of the nation wali baat aa jati hai na. Not that I am sound of the nation, but like the moment you create a curatorial situation, people expect that good things will make it to the list. So mere case mein, like, I'm not listening to a lot of like drama OSTs. Like not many of them cross my radar or like go into it. So many of them will touch my like normal Taza Mal playlist, जिसमें मैं सब कुछ नया डालता हूँ, but they don't really make that many of the selections because I don't listen to them that much. But there is a sense कि क्या क्या आना चाहिए. So for me, like if there is a like a Balochi rapper, because they tend to not be heard as often or not have that many of a large audience, like for me, it's just like, okay, this represents something that should be in the overall mix of things be heard. Or if there is like something quite new or quite different, new language, new genre, in some cases, I will make sure that is in purely for the purposes of, if you look back at it, like मैं उस तरह भी देखता हूँ कि अगर आप पिछले 3 साल के releases देखते हो and you go through all of my playlists as a way of figuring out what was good and what came out, that some of the songs should make that cut.
Right. Yeah.
So I think about it in that way. Is like what will last in 2 years as something that is like worth talking about.
Yeah, because this is not just your private playlist, right? There is a sort of, as we've discussed, sort of like a documentary slash journalistic, uh, insight into this as well, which means that it can't just be things that only things that you are listening to. It has to be a bit more holistic. It's sort of becoming that sort of Twitter feedback loop where all the journalists are on Twitter because they are talking about the news, but then what is on Twitter is also becoming news. So this
Huh.
playlist, we did the thing where we tried to select a few songs each, and I selected songs decidedly on purpose, songs which are not hip hop, because I'm an old man, but also I feel like I'm not connected enough for the songs to not sound too similar to me.
Yeah.
So it's sort of all blending together. But then I did pick a Towers song, so that does have. I heard that song, and I listened to the whole thing. I think I zoned out because then I heard it again now. And I'm like, well, there's a whole second part of the song which is a completely different song.
जो
when
बिल्कुल आखिर में आता है 10-15
हाँ
सेकंड.
हाँ, and I was like, this is the same song, or did so that's a Tower situation. But the first song that I had selected is a repeated person, Zahoor, the song Durshal. Zahoor is this guy's a very interesting guy, man. He just comes up with like aesthetic that I'm not expecting out of like just Pakistani music. I'd have no exposure to Pashto music. So this song is very, again, different from his previous songs, different from other songs. What's up with, do you know the lyrics? Do you understand Pashto now? I was like, I should
Not at
send this
all.
to Pashto speakers so
हाँ
that they
बिल्कुल,
can
हमें
translate it
कुछ
for me.
बैकग्राउंड रिसर्च करनी चाहिए, लेकिन असल में
Yeah.
प्रॉब्लम है कि जो लोग पॉडकास्ट करना चाहते हैं ना, देयर आर सेल्फ सेलेक्टिंग ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल हु डिसाइड कि नहीं, जरूरत नहीं है. सो
This is enough.
दिस इज इनफ. हम
Yeah.
अब माइक खरीद लिया, यही काफी है हमारे
Yeah,
लिए
yeah,
टू
yeah,
शो
yeah.
आवर legitimacy. I think Zahoor is interesting primarily because he is one of the few people that is doing something that is so clearly new.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
बाकी सब देखते हैं, I think, like as you said, with like the hip hop people, like sometimes they begin to sound similar, like if you're not coming to it from a different angle. Yeah, like all the rock musicians have this sort of same, like
Yeah,
they fit into a tradition you understand, but Zahoor does not fit into a tradition you understand.
yeah.
It feels very um, uh, bold and sort of uncharted territory. That
Yeah.
it is in Pashto only makes it better. Like if this song
Yes,
was in Urdu, it would not appear as new. And I think the
sure.
choice of language, I can't comment on like the language itself, like the
Right,
words that are being used and so forth.
right,
But the
right, right.
fact that it, like, the language that he's using also adds a different like oral quality to the music. And I don't think there's anybody else doing stuff like this. Like
No,
definitely not in Pashto music, but probably not even in Urdu
music.
music.
Yeah, yeah. If there
Uh,
is comment, no, if anyone's listening. But yeah,
so that's why he's interesting. And I think he's like one of those people that doesn't have he's overperforming his audience numbers at the moment. Like he is small, but the quality of stuff that he is putting
yeah.
out is
Oh,
really,
right.
really good.
That's an
Right.
interesting way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, that speaks of someone that is just like, you're waiting for one good chance and then it blows up.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the
Right.
groundwork is
Because
all there, clearly.
the groundwork is all there, because you know that if they are given like eyeballs, that they will have something good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
So
I
I
think
think
we've heard at least 3 songs from Zahoor. And all, like the Pashto thing, I think that's why we go to the song. Like, oh, it's a Pashto song, we don't hear Pashto songs. But then that doesn't become like the whole unique thing about the song.
right,
That's just the entryway into it. That, oh, Pashto song, we don't hear it. But then the music is so good, the production is great. Oh, I'm just surprised at how different all the songs are from one another.
I think he is based in Mardan, if I'm not wrong. I
Okay.
had a chance to meet him a few weeks ago.
Oh,
Really
very
nice
good.
guy.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's based in Mardan. And so I think the scene there is also very disconnected from the scene everywhere else.
Right.
So
Right.
he collaborates with people in other cities, but his sort of core creative process seems to be somewhat
Removed.
separated,
Right.
removed,
Right.
which I think is something that he uses really to his advantage.
Right.
And in his case, I think the challenge is just like being able to keep putting the stuff out, right? Like, as you know, like with creative work, if you keep doing like really good work that doesn't get the feedback that you expected to for the quality that you are doing it.
Yes, we know this.
the that's the challenge of like
Yeah,
continuing to stick to it until you get that one door to open.
yeah.
And so for him, I think that's the difficult bit. But for everybody listening to him, I think of it as like the easiest. Like if you want to be a hipster, being like, I discovered this person before they were big. Zahoor is the person you want to be listening
Yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah.
Because he also does it consistently. It's not like, oh, he had one good song. Like he's done like 2 or 3 songs now, as you said, all
Yeah.
of them high quality.
Yeah. Even the videos were
So
interesting of at least the previous.
mm,
I think we've seen
mm,
2, right?
ha, ha,
At
ha.
least one, I think 2, and there's like a lot of thought put into it, and it's like I was also thinking that Pashto is also not a barrier, like for us to relate to the song. Oh, we don't understand the language, so the whole song is now wasted for us. It's not even like
I find that really interesting actually. कि South Asian language हम सुन रहे हो is
Mm,
easy to kind of get into.
yeah.
Like it's more so than suppose if I was listening to like something French or Spanish.
Mm.
Like मेरे लिए वो connection इतना आसान नहीं होता. I don't know if this is just if there's anything objective to it or if it's
Right.
just like
Sure. But
feelings.
still.
But there was this like Bengali Coke Studio song called Nazik Nazik. Did you hear it?
No.
Really catchy. You should.
Okay. Okay.
No, I don't understand a word, but it
Right.
sounds exactly like Pakistani Coke Studio
Right.
songs also. Like you can totally get into it. I mean, same thing for a lot of like Coke Studio music where I didn't quite understand the language. Like mujhe koi Punjabi bahut zyada nahi aati. Like there's a lot of other, whenever they've used other languages, non-Urdu, I don't necessarily understand them, but it's easy to get into them.
Yeah.
I think same way kind of like the way Bollywood works, right? Okay, like Bollywood mein bhi aap le aate hain regional languages ke
Sure.
like words and phrases, and that seems to work. So I think there's something to it, which is that there's actually much smaller of a barrier to switching languages than we expect.
Yeah.
And I think that most of Pakistani media tends to be in Urdu is actually probably unnecessary, that it doesn't need to be that strict.
Yeah. We're getting very close to the debate of should Urdu be the national language of Pakistan. We will solve it in this series. But okay, great. Shout out Zahoor. Maybe somebody should talk to him also instead of talking about him.
Bilkul. Yeah. We should get a hold of him.
Zahoor, where do you live? The next song, next song is the one that I was talking about before this, which is Towers and Talal Qureshi. Towers again, very unique sound. Like they have Asher is a big hip hop name, but his work is also different to, like, there's a big school of young stunners sort of rappers. There's the Karachi sound, I think, which is I would lump in my generalistic endeavors. I would put young stunners there, LUG there, and then there's a lot of like connecting threads where you can see how this guy is clearly influenced by them, or they may be part of the same circle. So there's like a number of artists who have that sound. Then the Lahore people, I think, don't have that sort of homogeneous kind of vibe, because Manu is very different to Faris. Faris is obviously king right now, but there are very unique people there. Towers again, they came out with, like, I suppose you call them like pop when they came out. Very different to what was happening at the scene. They had like their own set sound, and I assumed that they were all not from Pakistan, and I think they were. Turns out, because I heard they were on somebody's podcast, and they're like, "Oh, hum Karachi ke hain." So how did you do this? And that continues here in this song as well. Very Towers sound.
It's very electronic.
Yes.
The voices are very also, especially Bilal's voice is very, very peculiar, very particular, right? Like it's kind of raspy, but also high. You don't get that very much. Like usually voices that are low tend to get raspy. Voices that are high tend to be clearer. His voice is high and raspy. So, and then he does like kind of word plays. The way they write the lyrics are very particular. So एक वो Bilal की आवाज है जिसकी वजह से I think that gets their sound very particular, and then they're very electronic in the sort of, they're not
sort of like chill, laid back also, the music.
Pop bana rahe na basically. Like it's kind of, think of it as almost like the same thing that Hassan Rahim kind of is doing in terms of Abdullah Kasumbi is doing, is like electro pop, but these guys are almost like catchier, like it's sort of less, there's less happening in the music,
dark vibes throughout. Relaxed,
like it's not
sinister vibes.
Right, like there's a bit of kind of broodiness.
Yes, Yes.
Acha, but then Asher has started rapping
Yes. I
in the
was telling
later
Sarkhail
music.
that Sarkhail, have you heard this new guy, Asher? He just showed up. Why don't he? And then Sarkhail told me that he has been in Towers from the beginning. And I was like,
But he wasn't rapping in the beginning, at least in a
yeah,
couple of songs.
yeah,
So I think आपने जो रैप की बात की ना, पाकिस्तानी रैप समझने के दो तीन broad lens है.
right.
There is, in terms of sound, there is what I call lyrical rap and pop rap. So lyrical
Sure.
rap is kind of what like Forest does, right? Which
Right.
is that the words are more important than the melody.
Hmm.
And then the pop rap is like kind of what Hassan does, kind of what Manu does in some instances, right? Like
Right.
Manu jab, what's a good Manu? Like ख्वाब जैसे मानू को पहला गाना था पहली एल्बम पे, like that's very kind of pop rap, like you can sing
Yeah.
along to it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
The
really
musicality
singing,
is a big thing.
right?
Yeah.
Right, but it's not like कि वो बहुत कोई ना सुर आ रहा है ऊपर नीचे का.
Right,
So
of
that's why
course.
it's like more rap than singing. So for me
Sure.
that is kind of the pop rap genre.
Yeah.
So that's one way of understanding it.
Right.
The second thing is the kind of almost cultural background of the rap.
Sure.
So जो हम वो कराची rappers की बात करते हैं, part of the reason why it all feels the same is because the cultural background of all of it is
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
Which is okay, they're like urban difficulties.
Yeah. Karachi stuff.
but मतलब और शहरों में भी आता है, but that is like basically
Yeah.
where it is, the theme is about
Struggle.
just struggle, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
they
there is
also
this
veer towards like the poetry rap almost. Like the youngster
Right.
Tala Anjum is very heavy. And I see that also in separate people like Bol Jani. Jani also has a lot of like, because I heard there was a song with that, I think this was not one of the rap songs, but one of the songs had Ilham in the lyrics. And I was like, this is not a word I expected in pop music.
नहीं, उन लोगों की references हैं थोड़ी like
Yeah,
poetry वाली.
heavier. Yeah.
So and in a way I think जो वो lyrical rap और जो ये जो मैं struggle rap बता रहा हूँ ना, culturally, like there's an overlap there. Like most of the struggle rap tends to be lyrical.
Right.
And then there is this like, sometimes we'll call it Lahore, sometimes we'll call it like Burger, Rich Kid, whatever. But basically there is rap that is not about struggle, which is not to say that these people don't have struggle in their lives, but that is not what the music is about.
Yeah, yeah.
So the themes tend to be more like pop song related.
Yeah, and even if there is struggle, it's more like intra-industry struggle, where there's like, you want me on your song, but I'm bigger than you, that sort of thing, which is also there in lyrical rap as well, which I think this is a common hip-hop thing.
I think it's a common hip-hop thing, but so मेरे लिए like Rosio, Manu, Ashir, Hassan, even Faris, like they are in this, they are not in the struggle rap category for me, because that is not the themes that their music are predominantly talking about. The themes of their music are predominantly the same as the themes of any pop music. So I think Ashir fits into that category.
Right. Okay.
Right? Like that's my view of it. Like I don't think of Towers as, I think of Towers more as relating to like Manu, Talal, Hassan. Then they relate to like Talanjum and Tala Yunus. Right? Yeah. So
even though Ashir's rap is like decidedly not like happy, fun kind of stuff, like tones, but it's also not my city is falling apart. Yeah.
So like thematically, like that's how I categorize them. For me, that makes it sort of easy to categorize. But Ashir, the thing about him is that his tone is like amazing. Right? In terms of he has this sort of one very particular tone when he raps, and a lot of criticism that I hear about a lot of Pakistani hip hop, especially like very young people, is that they haven't quite figured out their tone.
Right.
And Ashir is like way ahead in that game. Like he doesn't have a lot of like
mature.
So that's always like really great to hear. So Towers don't really put out like a bad song, right? Like you don't see an unfinished song from them. Very much. They tends to always be very polished, very well rounded. And then once you put Talal into the mix, I think that like Talal also has that same level of polish that he puts out, so you can hear that in the two songs that they have put out in one track.
Before we move to another song, there was this younger artist whose obviously name I've forgotten, but I saw that he had the song had co-credited Fatwa, which is these Abdullah Qasumbi Karachi, I think, collective, I think. And then again, because talking about now, because these new artists are big enough or established enough that they have artists coming up who are influenced by them. So Young Stunner's obviously been around for much longer. But I heard this song and I thought that this is like a Hassan Rahim-esque, but different, but in that same sort
It
of...
sounded like Hassan, right?
It did.
Ha,
It did.
ha, ha.
Yeah.
If the name wasn't there, I might have mistakenly guessed it to be Hassan.
Yeah. And his name is Hamza Jahangir. So name is also quite close to Hassan Rahim. But it sounded like not like a Hassan Rahim copy, but somebody who seems to have some influences of the Hassan Rahim sound. Which is a interesting phenomenon because Hassan Rahim has only been around for...
And I think it's just
3
the
years.
presence of like fatwa, right?
Yeah.
Kusumbi, Abdullah, like they are so involved in Hassan's work, most of it, that when they go to somebody else that it sounds similar makes total sense.
So then song number 3 that I picked later, but you had in your initial selection, and you also have a few other songs, was the Ali Sethi song. Ali Sethi has come out with a song recently. This, it seems like I haven't heard many Ali Sethi songs historically outside of Coke Studio, but this one decidedly seems to have a new age, like a modern age sound with Ali Sethi's vocals, and sort of lyrical content. But why did you pick this song?
So it's produced by Abdullah. I'm not sure if you knew that.
Oh, no, I didn't know. Okay, that makes sense.
So like one of the reasons I picked it is because I think it says a lot about what Ali Sethi is trying to do in his career right now. So I had a chance to see Ali Sethi on his US tour when he was performing live. So I saw him in Seattle a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
So he plays this as like the first or second song when he starts. So he does like a 80-minute set. और उसमें ये पहला दूसरा गाना होता है. And so he does a lot of talking in his set. And so he's like, doing lots of background हर गाने के पीछे. तो इसमें वो बताता है कि उसने ये like he did on his like little keyboard did a recording, sent it to Abdullah, and Abdullah said, I'm going to do something with it, but you won't like it.
Oh, okay.
And then sends it back, and then it was either this or like close to a final form of this. So it's interesting. And then the way that he does his set is that the set was about, I would say 60% Indians, 40% Pakistanis, maybe even 70-30. And everybody वो गजलें रिक्वेस्ट कर रहे थे लोग जो इसने गाई हुई हैं. और ये कुछ वो भी गजलें गा रहा था जो आमतौर पे like he hasn't done on Coke Studio or whatever, but like other people have requested, so he'll sing a few songs, he'll sing a few Bollywood songs, he'll do mashups.
Right.
But people were putting out requests, and what he would do is that he would sing 2-3-4 लाइनें गाता था गजल की, and then he would move on to the next गजल. पूरी गजलें नहीं गाता था, which I found was really interesting. Basically what he ended up doing was that he was catering to particular people in his crowd, some of who quite much older as well, who had particular ghazals in mind that they wanted to hear. And he was able to do it in a way that he continued to bring the new crowd forward. And so what he does is that he sort of educates the crowd on the kind of ghazal history, while also making sure that everyone remains interested. And
Right.
this kind is sort of in a poppy zone.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's really interesting that he is taking his sound now to this scene.
Right.
And the reason I find it interesting is because Pakistani जो सारी traditional arts हैं जिस किस्म की भी, I think this you see it a lot in like cultural work, I see in technological work also, कि हम वो एक चीज अड़ जाती है ना tradition पे, तो हम उस पे फिर हम उसको किसी तरह करने को ना हम उसको sacrilegious समझते हैं.
Right, of course.
कि कुछ हो जाएगा. And so for traditional arts, especially ghazal, like कवाली तो फिर भी नुसरत ने कर दी थी ना कि उसमें
too much controversy at the time apparently. People tell me.
Yeah, lots, but अब तो कोई कुछ नहीं कहता ना, बस वो एक दफा हो गया. So I think with ghazal there hasn't been as much intervention or innovation as with Qawwali. And so to have someone that has established his position in that range of singers by like being around all the big people, like इनके उस्ताद थे, फिर वो फरीदा खानम के साथ, like he says he's with her a lot, उनसे सीखता है, so he has like clear reverence to the older folks. So once he's established that reverence, that he is from now this position doing crazy things like this song, like Ghazab Kiya, I think lends a sense where new things are happening without people being able to call out that he is destroying the old tradition.
Right. So basically what you're pointing out is that he, because of his very interests and like obvious fluency in styles. He has distinct audiences who he's able to allow to exist in the same space just because he's fluent in those different sort of art forms. Not art forms,
Right.
but genres
And can
almost.
take a traditionally what appears to be a stereotypically dated form that would be boring in a concert setting and manages to keep young people interested as he takes
Right.
them through. And that's his
Right.
whole thesis, right? वो argument बताता रहता है कि like Ghazal is a young people's genre. सिर्फ बूढ़े लोगों को नहीं सुनना चाहिए. We have to
Acha.
like modernize
Acha.
it. So
Right.
that's his like a thing that he's been saying for many, many years.
Yeah.
And so that he is now operationalizing it both in terms of how he does the concert and how he is doing this new music, I find is very, very interesting.
Right.
And it is worth commenting on as like an artistic strategy.
Endeavor.
Even if you don't like the song in particular, like
Sure.
what he is trying to do with it will have I feel like a lasting impact.
Does it seem like a more more well thought out, more native type of thing that the early 2000s fusion rock people were trying to do, where they were just taking fully classical vocals and throwing them into rock melodies and then saying that this is, an evolution, but then that's sort of died. But this seems to be more like holistically integrated because he is somebody who can exist in both these worlds, or am I just building it up to be a bit?
Maybe. I think what we're doing here is we're comparing one Ali Sethi to all of the early 2000s. And in that comparison, the average, I agree with you. But if you take the best of that, like हम थोड़े दिन पहले मैं और नताशा ना अखियां सुन रहे थे.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a great song.
Yeah.
And it's like so well done, like so progressive, but also so well done. So like, I think there were instances where we've done this sort of stuff before. I think what we haven't done, like fusion वगैरह ये नहीं करते थे कि they weren't taking like a traditional form and pushing it forward. They were just taking flavors of it and adding it in, right? मतलब आप अखियां सुनते हुए ये नहीं कहते कि ये वो एक पुरानी कोई गजल गा रहा है या कोई पुराना, like it's a new kind of song with that classically trained vocal. Whereas I think what Ali Sethi is doing is very much, he is saying this is in the same genre.
Right.
This is a development of the same tradition. I'm not making a new tradition. I'm not making Western pop with just Eastern training. Like it's not like, kind of what Mekal Hassan Band does. So Mekal Hassan
I was
Band
thinking of them exactly. Yeah.
कि वो लोग भी in the 2000s also, and even now, they are saying that what we are doing is Eastern,
like a continuation rather than a diversion. But Mekal Hassan Band, I think, always had that problem of not being approachable for the casual listener, where because they are, they're in the Eastern tradition of, pursuing perfection. They are fully there, right? They're not trying to be pop. Whereas fusion perhaps didn't have that continuation thing. They just had the vocals, but they were also decidedly modern. So okay.
And now Ali Sethi has a hit on his hands, like a huge hit that he is attracting people for, the hit. And so that he is then using that as a way of taking all of his other stuff and putting it back in. Like, it's also interesting, right? Like Pasudi ke baad aapka, I think this is probably his first song after, if I'm not wrong.
I think
Maybe
so.
there's one in the middle. So if this is your first song right after it, it shows a kind of continuation in his previous trajectory, as opposed to like, okay, ab main hit maker ban raha hu,
only bangers.
So which I think is really good, and it's kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah. But then there were also a couple songs that you had. Ghazab Kiya we shared. Kab Tak, Shahreh and Umair. Umair is here a lot in this playlist.
Umair is everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, he puts out so much stuff. He's really kind of incredible. So of course he's like on every song. So the reason I put this one in is because if you look at it, you listen to it, people will be like, acha, not super well developed tone, whatever. But I find it really interesting. So the Shahreh is from the Stunners universe. I believe one of the younger kids. The really interesting thing, why is you? One of the really interesting things about Shahreh is that this song is about, like, basically मैं कहाँ से आया और मैं कहाँ चला गया. It's like about using song to escape the entrapment of like a modern life where like people are unable to jump social or economic classes. And so you see that his वो कहता है कि मैं Spotify से यूनिवर्सिटी के पैसे दे रहा हूँ, मेरे घर में सारी नई appliances आ गई हैं, Panasonic.
Right,
You know,
right,
this is
right,
not like the bling that you expect from hip hop,
right,
but
right,
it comes up with that same level of swag.
right.
And so for me, what's interesting is that when you listen to this, you see a totally different picture than you would see with musicians elsewhere. And I think I've heard a little bit recently about how hip hop is like the bling of hip hop comes from the fact that to a lot of people, hip hop artists were trying to portray how they could escape
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
the social situation they were
yeah.
trapped in.
Proof
And
of their
then,
escaping. Yeah,
right. And the bling is proof of their escaping. And
yeah,
what's really interesting is the Stunners have another song, will be a playlist mein called Benz, where the whole thing is like, I'm in a Benz and I've got everything I need.
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah,
And so those guys have kind of escaped. And so they are operating in that bling.
yeah,
Whereas this kid is in their circle and is just
yeah,
like, well, I just got a new fridge.
yeah, yeah.
Which I find that juxtaposition really interesting in a very
Sure.
heartfelt way.
Yeah.
And I don't think people appreciate that type of cultural output as much. I think that's the thing about the scene that I think people tend to like disregard a lot. And my big beef right now is that I don't think any of the people with money in the industry take the scene seriously. I think they just ignore it.
Right,
they don't even know how big the numbers are. When they do know how big the numbers are, they're just like, how many patam, like they'll ignore it.
Yeah.
And they would much rather pick smaller people that are more well known in like sort of the
smaller specific circles.
In specific circles, rather than these people that have audiences of like 50,000, 60,000, 100,000.
It's just they don't like what that audience
radar meaning hai, you know. And like Pepsi tried one rap campaign where they got Rap Demon, who was like one person in the Stunners universe that was not otherwise known, and like I think then they gave up on it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But other than that, like all these guys like Shahreh, I mean Umair बहुत बड़ा हो गया, but like ये Jani, Bol Jani, JJ47, like all of these guys are huge.
Yeah.
But they don't get any acceptance. Young Stunners, just by sheer force of just like how quickly they were growing, escaped it.
Unignorable, yeah.
They became unignorable, and then they got a couple of big breaks. Like they did a Coke ad. Ali Hamza ke saath, one of them did it, and then they had the PSL anthem.
They also did Pepsi.
Like
oh wow, that's a great
Pepsi to baad mein
hai na. They've done Coke and Pepsi.
तो but अब तो कोई उनको इग्नोर कर ही नहीं सकता ना. Now if you ignore them at your own peril. But I think all of these other guys are the same way, but basically I get the feeling that most people that are not in that exact circle don't even register them. And I find it, frankly, kind of offensive. I'm not from this circle at all, but it just seems so biased.
It's another form of elitism, gatekeeping, that sort of thing, just playing out in Karachi, दीवार से लगाया जा रहा है कराची वालों को, as they say, I guess truly. And then speaking of, I suppose we'll talk about why Ay Karachi has been foisted upon me, and मैंने सुन भी लिया. It's nice. It is fun. I do appreciate what you were saying was correct, that this is it's endearing, it's heartfelt, it's about Karachi, which is unique in its own thing, about being from Karachi in a song about Karachi, which is not just, nobody cares about us. With a bit of that in the song, but in a fun way, I suppose.
I feel like it is complaining about the common issues of Karachi, but it turned into it's those images of New York where people are like valorizing its grime and the grind, and that you live in a shoebox and like how hard life is, but best place to live in the world. This is that happening to Karachi, I think. They take the same and they reference the same things that show up in darker commentaries, and then they turn it into it makes you feel like the people in the song want to be there rather than anywhere else.
There's like a mention of difficult commutes and phones being stolen and stuff like that. Like, it's just a vibe.
It's reminiscent actually of like very early hip hop, like 2013, 2015 type Pakistani hip hop, like Young Stunner जो शुरू में आए थे, remember Burger Karachi जिस तरह ये शुरू हुए थे actually, और Young Desi का जो original गाने थे, मैं और Shida. Have you heard मैं और Shida?
I have mentioned on
this podcast before.
I know.
So like शुरू में जब SoundCloud पे ये लोग अपने निकालते थे एक दो गाने, all of them were kind of silly like this, which was just that they were saying funny things about their surroundings, and this feels kind of like that. And I think aside of Eva B. I don't think many of the others are super
No.
well known.
Yeah.
And it's fun that like Eva's on it also.
Yeah.
Like I think the really interesting thing is that Eva B, like, I think linking it to the previous discussion, is that she's the one person that has crossed out also from this aside of the stunners into the kind of more mainstream discourse, and that she is also on here, and then you get to see her in this form as well as seeing her and everything else. I think that's really interesting. So for me, the whole package as a result becomes something that you want to like at least hear once. Like it may not be a thing that you hear hundreds of times, but it feels worthwhile like understanding it as a cultural output.
If you've not been to Karachi, don't listen to this song. Because I don't want your opinions.
Karachi ki image kharab ho jayegi.
Unnecessarily. Chale, theek hai. Thank you very much, Zeerak, for doing this. Great effort as always every month. And this time I was late in following up on doing the, but you have a couple more weeks then before the next one is due. That this is one thing that was interesting that I think I was thinking about pehle se was is Spotify helpful for new artists, which this Shahreh wali situation seems to indicate that it is possible for Spotify to be of actual benefit, and it's not just like a distribution platform that isn't really working out for people. But
maybe
I think we'll follow that up at some point. Now we have those two ideas: drama OSTs and brand music.
Ad music.
Yes. New HBO.
Not brand music. So we don't want Coke Studio songs.
Sure.
Yeah.
Jingles.
To be clear.
Yeah.
We want to make collections of best jingles and best drama OSTs.
Yeah.
Drama OSTs I think is easy enough. Like both the Spotify playlist we are drama OSTs.
Oh really?
So we can go.
Right. Yes.
But ad jingles are going to be harder because I think
because those go all the way back.
Those go all the way back, and sometimes you can't even find an exact archive. But ad jingles will be good.
Yeah, we'll think about this. Coming to an episode near you sometime. Take it easy. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, watching. Links below, playlist, everything. Go follow, like, share, subscribe, send money.